Now let's talk about Washington, D.C., a city known for many things: powerful politicians, majestic monuments, and of course, the soul-crushing traffic on the I-495 Beltway. It's a place where the biggest industry is, well, government. For decades, the D.C. area has been insulated from the economic roller coasters that rattle the rest of the country, thanks to the seemingly bottomless pockets of Uncle Sam. But what happens when Uncle Sam decides to tighten his belt, or more accurately, when Congress forces him into a pair of fiscal, skinny jeans he hasn't worn since 1995? We're finding out right now, and frankly, it's not a pretty sight. The federal government, that reliable economic engine, is sputtering. Thanks to budget caps and the kind of political gridlock that makes a DMV line look like a high-speed chase, federal spending is being slashed, and the ripple effect is turning into a tidal wave across the capital region. This isn't just some abstract number on a spreadsheet, it's a full-blown economic slowdown that's hitting people where it hurts. We're seeing unemployment tick up, wallets snap shut, and key sectors that once thrived on federal largesse, now staring into a very uncertain future. We're going to dive deep into the economic storm brewing over the Potomac. We'll look at the rising unemployment claims, the mounting layoffs, the disappearing shoppers, and even the shrinking population. Because what's happening in D.C. is more than just a local story. It's a cautionary tale about what happens when a region puts all its economic eggs in one very large, very bureaucratic, and increasingly unreliable basket. So, grab a drink, settle in, and let's talk about why Washington's economic forecast is looking decidedly gloomy, with a high chance of painful reality checks. So, let's start with the most basic, gut punch indicator of economic trouble: people losing their jobs. For years, D.C. has boasted a robust job market, a safe harbor in stormy economic seas. But lately that harbor is looking awfully choppy. Unemployment claims are on the rise, and not just by a little bit. We're talking about a significant, maybe I should update my LinkedIn kind of jump. It's the sound of thousands of people's financial security suddenly going up in smoke. And this isn't your standard run-of-the-mill economic downturn. There's a very specific flavor to this particular brand of misery. The real canary in the coal mine here is the surge in federal civilian jobless benefits. Yes, that's right. The number of former federal employees filing for unemployment has spiked dramatically. These aren't just random jobs, these are the supposedly stable, secure, I'll retire from here government gigs. When the government itself starts shedding workers at this rate, it's a massive red flag. It tells you the cuts aren't just trimming the fat, they're cutting into the bone. The very foundation of the DC economy is showing cracks, and each new claim is another tremor. Think about the ripple effect. Every one of those lost jobs means one less person buying coffee, one less family going out for dinner, one less paycheck contributing to the local tax base. It's a domino effect of despair. The local economy, which has been propped up by these salaries for generations, is now feeling the squeeze. The safety net that was the federal government is becoming the source of the problem. It's like finding out your lifeguard can't swim. It's a deeply unsettling shift that's turning the region's greatest strength into its most glaring vulnerability. If rising unemployment claims are the smoke, then the WARN Act notices are the 5-alarm fire. For those of you who don't spend your weekends reading labor law, and honestly, good for you, the WARN Act is the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act. It basically requires companies to give a 60-day heads up before a mass layoff. It's the corporate equivalent of texting "we need to talk." And recently in the DC area, that particular text has been sent an alarming number of times. These notices are piling up faster than lobbyists on a free buffet. The sheer volume of these layoff warnings is staggering. We're not talking about a handful of companies trimming their staff. We're seeing a rapid, widespread culling, and the epicenter is exactly where you'd expect: government contractors. These are the companies, the consultants, the IT firms, the security specialists, whose entire business model is based on securing lucrative federal contracts. When the government's spending dries up, their revenue streams evaporate, and their employees are the first casualties. It's a brutal, direct consequence of the budget cuts happening on Capitol Hill. And it's not just the contractors. Organizations that rely heavily on federal funding, from nonprofits to research institutions, are also feeling the pain. The WARN Act notices paint a grim picture of an entire ecosystem on the brink of collapse. These aren't just jobs, they are often high-paying specialized positions that form the backbone of the region's middle and upper middle class. Each notice represents dozens, sometimes hundreds of families facing an uncertain future, all because the federal spigot has been cranked shut. It's a stark reminder that in D.C., when Washington sneezes, a whole lot of people catch a nasty employment-ending cold. So, what happens when thousands of people lose their high-paying jobs and thousands more are terrified they're next? That's right, they stop spending money. It's not exactly rocket science, it's Scarednomics 101. And in Washington, D.C., we're seeing a consumer spending slowdown that would make even the most frugal hermit say, "Wow, you guys are really cutting back." People are clutching their wallets with the same desperation that a toddler clutches a stolen cookie. The data is clear, Washingtonians are spending less, significantly less. Let's look at the specifics because this is where it gets truly bleak. Spending on dining out, it's down. Apparently the stress of potential unemployment doesn't pair well with a $28 plate of artisanal pasta. Clothing stores, sales have plummeted. The new office wardrobe can wait when you're not sure you'll have an office to go to. Even entertainment, the traditional escape from grim reality, is taking a hit. People are trading movie tickets for Netflix and fancy cocktails for a six-pack at home. It's a citywide belt-tightening of epic proportions. And here's the kicker. DC's spending decline is outpacing that of other major cities. While places like New York and Boston are seeing a post-pandemic rebound, DC is heading in the opposite direction. It's a clear sign that this isn't just part of a national trend, it's a localized crisis fueled by its unique dependence on the federal government. The once bustling restaurants and boutiques of the nation's capital are getting quieter, and for the thousands of people who work in those establishments, that silence is deafening. It's the sound of an economy grinding to a halt. You know things are bad when people start leaving, not just visiting less but packing up their lives and getting the hell out. For the first time in a long while, the District of Columbia is projected to shrink. Yes, forecasts are predicting a population decline, a demographic U-turn that speaks volumes about the city's fading appeal. People are voting with their moving vans, and the results are not looking good for the home team. This isn't just about a few people chasing cheaper rent. It's a fundamental shift in the city's trajectory. Why are people leaving? Well, when the primary industry that drew you to a city in the first place starts laying people off by the thousands, sticking around seems less like a smart career move, and more like waiting for a ship that's already sunk. The high cost of living in DC was always justified by the abundance of high-paying, stable jobs. But when that stability vanishes, you're just left with an incredibly expensive apartment and a spectacular view of your dwindling savings account. It's a simple cost-benefit analysis, and for an increasing number of residents, the costs are winning. The implications of a shrinking population are, to put it mildly, terrifying for city officials. Fewer people means fewer taxpayers. That means less money for schools, for roads, for public transit, for everything that makes a city function. It's a fiscal death spiral. The economy weakens, so people leave, which weakens the tax base, which forces cuts to city services, which makes the city a less desirable place to live, which causes more people to leave. It's a vicious cycle that, if left unchecked, could have devastating long-term consequences for the health and vitality of the nation's capital. For years, the DC skyline has been a forest of construction cranes. New condos, new apartment buildings, new office towers. It was a concrete and steel testament to the region's seemingly unstoppable growth. Well, that forest is starting to look a little sparse. The housing construction boom is slowing down dramatically. The constant hum of development is being replaced by a nervous quiet. This isn't just a pause, it's a full-on correction in the real estate market, another casualty of the federal spending freeze. The numbers don't lie. The pipeline of new housing projects is thinning out, and developers are getting skittish. Why build 1,000 new luxury apartments when the 1,000 people who could afford them are either losing their jobs or fleeing the city? At the same time, the inventory of homes for sale is increasing. More houses are hitting the market and they're sitting there for longer. That's a classic sign of a shift from a seller's market to a buyer's market, driven by decreased demand and increased economic anxiety. This slowdown has a massive knock-on effect. The construction industry itself is a huge employer, from architects and engineers to plumbers and electricians. A slowdown in building means a slowdown in jobs for all of those people. It also impacts property values, which in turn affects the city's tax revenue. The cranes on the skyline were always a symbol of D.C., quote, as prosperity and confidence in the future. As they start to come down without new ones going up to replace them, they're becoming a symbol of something else entirely, a future that suddenly looks a lot less certain. Okay, so if the government workers are leaving and the buildings aren't being built, surely DC can fall back on its other great industry, tourism, right? The city is a magnet for school trips, international visitors, and anyone who wants a selfie with a giant marble Abraham Lincoln. Well, about that. It turns out the glow of tourism is also starting to fade. The expected post-pandemic boom has been more of a fizzle, and the sector is facing its own set of significant challenges. The cherry blossoms might be blooming, but the tourist dollars are not. Take, for example, the recent celebration for the 250th anniversary of the United States. This should have been a massive city-filling event, a guaranteed home run for hotels and restaurants. Instead, the impact was, to be generous, underwhelming. The crowds were smaller than anticipated, and the economic boost was a fraction of what was hoped for. It's a worrying sign when even a once-in-a-lifetime national celebration can't fill the city. If people won't show up for America's birthday party, what will they show up for? The problems run deeper than a single event. Air passenger traffic at the region's airports is declining, a direct indicator that fewer people are choosing to visit. The convention business, another critical pillar of the hospitality industry, is also struggling to regain its pre-pandemic footing. All of this points to a tourism sector that is not the reliable safety net the city might have hoped for. It seems that even the majestic monuments and world-class museums aren't enough to counteract the perception of a city in economic distress. Tourism can't save DC if it can't even save itself. So there you have it, a city facing a perfect storm. Rising unemployment, mass layoffs, plunging consumer spending, a shrinking population, a stalling construction sector, and a faltering tourism industry. Each of these issues is a problem on its own, but together, they paint a deeply troubling picture of a regional economy at a critical crossroads. The federal government, the economic sun around which the DC area has revolved for a century, is dimming, and the entire system is being thrown into cold, chaotic darkness. This is no longer a hypothetical problem, it's a clear and present danger to the prosperity of the entire region. The path forward requires more than just hoping Congress will suddenly find a magic money tree. It demands serious, strategic, and perhaps uncomfortable conversations about the future. The city's leaders and its residents need to acknowledge the reality of this new normal and begin the hard work of planning for a future that is not so dangerously dependent on a single, fickle employer. This means fostering new industries, supporting small businesses, and creating an economic ecosystem that is resilient, diverse, and capable of withstanding the political whims of Capitol Hill. The era of easy, government-fueled growth is over. And that brings us to the fundamental multi-billion-dollar question: if not the federal government, then what? What can possibly replace an economic engine of that size and influence? Can tech or biotech or education or some yet-to-be-imagined industry fill the massive void being left behind? Or is the Washington, D.C. area destined for a long, painful period of economic decline and readjustment? There are no easy answers, but one thing is certain: ignoring the question is no longer an option. The future of the nation's capital depends on finding an answer, and finding it soon. Thank you for watching.